will have that, we will have that available. Let's just a minute. We have our Zoom ready there. The only thing we need to do, we need to share our screen. And now you are able to see our wonderful screen. And Tom, oh, thank you, Tom.
There you go. There we go.
Yeah. All right, welcome. February 17th. I hope you guys had a wonderful Valentine's Day. Yeah, Tom and Jolanta. Couple of overviews from me. Please note that all the trainings are being recorded. If you would like to review them or see prior ones, please go to the bottom of our website for sales reps. There is a section that that you will, when you click on it for PNA sales rep, you will be prompted to enter user ID and password, which is provided down below. And this wonderful screen is going to appear, and then you will be able to watch that particular session. We had, I just emailed a few agents when this training, we are going to finish this training, that information, that training will be downloaded and they will be able to watch it because of some of them had conflict of attending it. Please note, we are trying to push the annuities this time. The annuities this time, I know that some of you will like to see the annuity rate schedule, which is provided on your screen. I could email to you, ladies and gentlemen. Our 5-year is paying 2.25 with the second, third, and fourth and fifth year. It's 5%. Please note that those annuities are for lifetime.
2%.
2%. Oh my goodness, that's not. Oh my goodness, that's not like Jolanta. She's missing the percentage. Sorry, it's 2.25 and then 2%. Thank you, Tom.
Yes.
Now the other plan, it's our PNA Flex. First year 2%, and then after the first year, the percentage might change, might go up, might go down, but it will never go below 1%. We also have PNA Flex 2, which has the interest rate of 1.15, and then it might change. Or if it's 50,000 or above, the balance, the interest is 2%. If you would like to receive that, let me know. I'll be more than happy to send it to you. We will be getting a new brochure. I will notify you in the email if you're doing any mailings to your members. Let us know, or let us know that we will be able to send this to you. Yes, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. I don't know how.
Previous. Okay.
See, I get nervous.
They make her nervous. Okay. This is coming out as a kind of like a bucks, what I call a buck slip. They have a different word for it around here, but it fits in an envelope. And anytime you're sending something to somebody, you should have some sort of brochure or buck slip in it, because it doesn't cost anymore to put something in. And I always think that we should make envelopes as heavy as we can get them before we have to add another stamp. It's just, I know I get stuff from other insurance companies all the time, and they always have a brochure in. And it might be about the annuity, about life insurance or whatever, but they always give me an opportunity, and they always give me something to look at in terms of purchasing something or taking a look at what I have. So I just wanted to say that's a really good thing to do, is to make sure you have some of these things so that you can put them in any correspondence that you're sending out. And if you're sending out, 100 letters or doing something like that, we'd be happy to supply you with the brochures. So, okay, next.
Next.
Okay.
Now is Mr. Chuck.
One of the things I wanted to talk about was we when we talk about the assets of the company, one of the assets that we have is a current membership, and a lot of you know an awful lot of members, and you also know you have a lot of friends. And the question is, whom should I talk to about insurance? Well, you really should talk to everybody about insurance, but how do you get names from the people you know? And we're going to talk about referrals. And the question is, well, who do you know? Whom do you know is the correct English from grammar. But who do you know? I had, when I was a brand new agent, they handed me a book, and it had space for 100 names in it. It was called the Who Do You Know book. And before I became an agent, I had to fill that thing out with everybody I knew. Well, I started looking. I looked in the yearbook. I looked at the parish directory, and I filled up 2 books, and we all know a lot of people. So, and what we call that is a warm source. And the warm sources of names are very productive, since they provide names of people that you possibly already know or can learn something about. And we call that qualifying information. And you can approach them. We're getting a little feedback. So if you could mute yourself, we're trying to mute you from here. But anyway, when we talk about approach on a favorable basis, that you already know something about them or you have something in common. And that really helps when you're asking for names. The warm sources produce qualified prospects who are people you know, people who know you, and people who are known by someone you know. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And there's an insurance quote: all things being equal, people will do business with friends. Things not being equal, they still do business with friends. So it's good to make friends out of these people. The more friends you have, the better off you are. So we're going to go through some tips for referral success. Why referrals? Well, it's really, truly the easiest way to do the business. Again, going back to my first days as an insurance agent, I went through a week's worth of training. At the end of the week, they did how to get referrals. And this was a Thursday. And Thursday afternoon, they said, okay, now you're going to go out, you're going to go see 10 people and get 30 names. And if you don't have them, don't come back on Monday. And it was I said, holy smokes. So they had given me a referral script, and I've got one that we're going to talk about in a little bit. And I got the referral script. I went out and I talked to my friends, and I said, I got an assignment I got to do. I got to see 10 people and get 30 names. Can you help me out? And invariably, they started thinking about people I could talk to. And the really neat thing about it was that these were people I liked. And they gave me people that they liked. And what I did was I made new friends, because I knew if they liked them, they'd probably be good people. What I found was approaching these people was much, much easier. What I would do is I'd call them and say, hey, I know you and I don't know each other, but we have a mutual friend in so-and-so. And they would say, oh yeah, how's he doing? And that was my entree. And I understand you go to St. A's and you got a couple of kids in school. So do I. I used to coach there. So I made a connection right away. So referrals come from a good source, people that you know. You have the third-party influence. Like I said, I know Yola. They know, and Yola's a friend of theirs. So as soon as I mentioned Yola's name, and I didn't say Yola said to call, I said, we have a mutual acquaintance in Yola. And that gives me credibility right away. I can also get qualifying information from Yola. Where does this person work? Do they own a home? Do they have kids? They're getting ready for retirement, or are they retired? Whatever. And you have something in common with it. And most likely they're in the same church or parish, or kids are in the same school, grandkids, whatever. And it gives you an opportunity to introduce yourself and your company. Now, this is kind of an interesting quote from Dale Carnegie. He's an old speaker that was around. I don't think he's alive anymore, but 91% of clients say they would give referrals, but only 11% of salespeople ask for them. And that's so true. And I don't know if those numbers are still correct, but I'm sure they're close. Agents get so involved with the sale that they're doing that they forget to ask for the referrals, and people expect them to. They really do. Learn script and just stick to it. It makes it much easier to ask. And as you're going through the conversations with people that you're talking to, and that you're having maybe an appointment or just having lunch with, remember names that they bring up, and say, hey, you mentioned Dr. So-and-so when we were talking. Is he somebody I should be talking to about the PNA? And how about, would you mind if I contacted him and just said that I know you? I don't have any problem with that. And join something. And all of you are in lodges, and that kind of makes it a little bit easier because you really have something in common with people. Get involved, volunteer, get on the board, and there's a lot of people that'll help you. I used to go into some at Northwestern University. I went into the HR department, and I had a friend in there, and he would introduce me to people in his office. Hey, this is Tom Adamson, my insurance guy. And I'd say, hey, I don't know if you need anything, but I'd sure be happy to talk to you and show you what we have and the services we provide. Set a goal. I always say get 3 names, because one person's going to buy now, one person's going to buy later, one person's never going to buy. And I had an agent not too long ago that I really talked to him about that. And he wrote an app, he brought it back into the office. I said, did you, and I always congratulate him on the sale, but my next question is, did you get some referrals? And he said, yeah. I said, how many? He said, I got 3. I said, well, how'd you get them? He said, well, I told him. I said, I need 3 names from you because one person is going to buy now, one person to buy later, one person's never going to buy. He said, and you got 3 names. He said, yeah. So stuff works. You just got to use it. And the big thing is, don't wipe out. Ask. Maybe that's too strong a term. Don't wimp out. But sometimes we forget. Sometimes we're hesitant because we don't want the person not to like us. But that's really not what happens. They expect you to ask. 3 sources of referrals. Can you get that? Yeah. Suspects and I think the little arrow down there. There you go. Suspects and prospects who can be asked for an introduction to the people they know. And I remember going into my local drugstore. Marv was, we got to talk and we got to be friends. And I went into him and I said, hey, I'm trying to build my business. And he said, a lot of people I don't know, and I'd like to meet someone. And he started giving me names. He gave me a bunch of good names. So again, it's easy if you just ask. Customers and clients that can be asked for an introduction. You've got customers, you've got And you know, that's insurance lingo, but we have members, and they all know somebody, and it's not necessarily who, if they know somebody who wants to buy insurance, it's is there somebody that you know that might be interested in being a member of PNA? Centers of influence. Centers of influence are people who are interested in your success, and they want to see you do well. They want the PNA to grow, and they are willing to give you names. So, and you know who those people are. So, how to ask for referral? John, I'd like to ask for your help. As you know, I'm with PNA here in Chicago, and I'm helping to build the membership and spread the word about the good things that PNA does in the Polish community. And now, I know you probably don't have anyone in mind who has asked you about PNA, but who do you know in your neighborhood who'd be willing to give me a few minutes of their time to learn about the PNA and how to become a member? Okay. And they start thinking, well, how about a church? Are you in a golf league, a book club, a bowling, whatever? They're in different organizations. I had a guy in a bowling league who kept giving me names of people that he's bowling with. He said, you know, you ought to talk to so-and-so. I was bowling with him the other night. And it just works out well. And once you ask for a referral and you get one, make sure you report back to the person who gave you the referral and tell them how it went. And they will give you more. And as long as you're professional about it, it works out very, very nicely. So have an idea of what you want for a referral. What do your current members have in common? What kind of people do you gravitate toward? I used to be involved in music a lot and playing basketball, and I went and saw my basketball friends, and I would get names from them. Do you have any hobbies or activities that people can relate to? I remember one night I went into a guy's house and he had a big fish aquarium, and in there he had 2 Oscars. And Oscars are like piranhas; they eat things. And I started asking about the fish because I had raised tropical fish when I was a kid. And he got to be real friendly with me just because I was asking him about his fish. These are the things that I remember from being an agent. I'd like to ask for your help. I know you don't know anyone who has asked you about PNA, so it takes an objection away. They'll say, well, I don't know anybody who wants to know about PNA. Well, I know you don't know anybody that wants to know about PNA. But who do you know that moved into the neighborhood? Who do you know that's new in the church? Who do you know that just started a business? Feed names or suggest sources of referrals. You need 3 names. One will never buy, one will buy later, and one will buy now. And that I've found to be very, very true. And once you get good at it, you'll be able to tell right away who's going to buy and who's not going to buy it, and who you can start a relationship with. So some of the personal sources, family members, and I think I told you this before. I used to have agents. I did when I was doing recruiting. New agent would come in and he'd say, "Well, I don't want to sell all my friends and family. I don't want to do that." And I'd say, "Okay, well, I understand that, but who do you want to sell them? Because somebody's going to sell them. Somebody's out there selling your family members. Somebody's out there selling the members of PNA. And it shouldn't be us. Shouldn't it be our policies? We have very competitive life insurance policies, and our annuity rates are pretty good. So we should be taking care of our family and our friends. Alumni associations, community organizations, neighbors, hairdresser, barber. My mom's hairdresser used to give me names, Pam. Yes, she was a riot. We got along really well. Professions, your doctor, your dentist, your attorney, your accountant, your auto insurance agent. Lots of times those guys just don't want to sell life insurance. Your real estate agent, they run into people all the time and they got new people coming in. So real estate agents are great sources. So closing thought, on referrals, we tend to get what we expect. And that's Norman Bissenpeel, another speaker, and he's got lots of quotes out there. We do, and we tend to get what we expect. And the thing about that is expectations, and we all need to have expectations in just about everything we do. And it's also, as part of raising kids, you get what you expect, and what you need to have is good expectations for yourself and for your family members. So, okay, so that was it on referrals. Again, it's an easy source. It's an easy source to talk to, and it'll help you in your business. And if you get good at it, there's nothing like it. I got real good at it because I started the business. I had my 5th child was born 3 days after I started selling insurance, and I really didn't have 2 nickels to rub together for a marketing program, and I didn't have PNA members to talk to. I had to start my own business from referrals, and I didn't, like I said, I went out and started talking to people and started getting names, and I found out how easy it was and how effective it was. So it's a great way to do the business. Excuse me. So moving on, we're going to talk about wills and testacy, and then we'll get into probate a little bit. And the big question is who's going to get what, and and that means after you die, who's going to get what, and that you can answer that question with a will. And we're going to talk about how important it is to have a will and what happens if we die without. So who decides what happens to everything we own when we die? Well, it's kind of up to you. When it comes to answering the question, who gets what, the answer is the same in every state. The property owner decides by following state guidelines, or the state decides for the deceased property owner. Which way do you want to go? If you don't have a will, you're said to be intestate, in which if you're intestate, the property distribution goes according to the state's intestacy laws. Let's say it 10 times fast. Intestacy is a status of one who dies without having executed a valid will. And the benefits seem obvious. I mean, most people you talk to have a will, but 2 out of 5 adults die intestate. So 40% of the people out there don't have a will. Well, let's talk about the terminology, and this is one of my favorites: per stirpes beneficiary.
Couple of clients, because see, it's different in banking. Per stirpes, couple of clients asked me for it. I talked to Peter to explain this to me, but yeah, I want to hear what.
Okay, well, per stirpes beneficiary, it's also in life insurance. We talk about per stirpes, and what that means is if you have one or more beneficiaries, let's say I have 4 kids, and they each have 2 kids, and I name my 4 kids as a beneficiary of my insurance, and I name them per stirpes. So one or more beneficiaries take a proportionate share of the immediate ancestor whom they claim as an intestate representative. Okay, so if one of my kids dies and then I die, the proceeds still are divided 4 ways. 3 of them get a quarter, and then the last quarter is divided between their 2 kids. So it goes down to the 2 kids, and they each get an 1/8. So that's what's a per stirpes beneficiary is. There's also what's called a per capita beneficiary. If I have my 4 kids and one of them dies, the other 3 get the whole thing. So they divide it by 1/3. And even though the 4th one has kids, they don't get it. It goes back to the other 3 beneficiaries. Okay, so you got per stirpes and you got per capita. And like I said, I've always been intrigued by persterpes. It's a comes from Latin, meaning it's going down. So now, who chooses the executor of the will? You or the state? Well, if you have a valid will, the executor is appointed by an individual to oversee the disposition of the property in accordance with the terms of the will. So when you draw up a will, you put an executor in there. An administrator is appointed by the state to oversee the disposition of an intestate death of an individual. So if you don't have a will, the state's going to name who the administrator is. Now, what's included in the estate? It's included is personal property, like jewelry, heirlooms, usually mentioned specifically, but you can put in the will, well, I've got music instruments and my wife can, because I got a couple of guitars and ukulele and all that kind of stuff. And I can just say my wife can distribute those any way she sees fit. Or I can leave one to my grandson, Ben, who plays the guitar, and my granddaughter, Olivia, who plays the guitar. So you can do that in the will. So those are personal effects. Cash gifts can be made. If you want a certain amount of money to go to each person, but you have to be very specific about that. And one of the problems with cash gifts is that if you die owing money to somebody, that's going to go to that somebody first, and then what's left over goes to the rest of it. So cash gifts can be a little bit iffy. Real estate, that's the other kind of property, real property. There's a need to be specific, especially if there's minors involved, because a guardianship can be an issue there. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Business interests. Now this gets a little interesting, and we'll do something on business interests at some point in the next few months. Any agreement regarding the disposition of the business should be mentioned in the will, like if you have a buy-sell agreement or something similar to that. The business is a corporation, the sale of stock may be an issue, okay? So the executor or trustee has a responsibility to be sure that the decedent's wishes are fulfilled. Now, I mentioned executor and trustee. The trustee is a different thing that's outside the will. But you can have a trustee, you can have a trust that's in a will, and it's a good thing to mention it in your will. Which assets pass by or bypass intestate succession? Only assets that would have passed through your will are affected by intestate succession law. So it's the same thing. If you have a will, they go this way. If you have a will, if you don't have a will, they go this way. That's the problem. And but if you don't have a will, you don't know if it's going to happen. Assets that you usually what it is assets that you own by yourself. In other words, I went to the auto dealer. My wife wasn't with me, so I just bought the car, and now it's in my name. Okay, so and that could present problems. I'll mention that again later. Many valuable assets don't go through your will and aren't affected by intestate succession laws, and we'll cover that in a minute. Here are some examples. Property you've transferred to a living trust. Okay, so you got the trust, doesn't go to the will, it goes to the trust. And the trust remains alive after you die. And then what you have in the trust is distributed according to what's in the trust. Yes.
But first you have to have the will, and then in the will mention that you have the trust. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay. Life insurance proceeds. You can name a beneficiary. And one of the problems we have in designing flyers is that we say that the life insurance proceeds are income tax free. Well, they're income tax free if you have a beneficiary named. Okay. If you name your estate beneficiary and the money goes into the estate and the estate owes taxes, then that money is going to go to the tax man. So it's really important to have a life insurance policy beneficiary named correctly. If you have one that dies and you don't have a second, it's going to go to your estate. So you have to be very careful about that. And that, like I said, we have trouble with that, saying tax-free income in terms of a death benefit on a flyer, because yeah, that's the way it works, but it might not. So we need to be careful about how we arrange beneficiaries and make sure there is a beneficiary name. Funds in an IRA, 401k, or other retirement account. That's because you name a beneficiary, and that will go to your beneficiary. You could name your estate, but that's not what you want to do. You want to have a named beneficiary for those things. Securities held in transfer on death accounts. There is such a thing. So you own stocks or other securities, and they're in an account, and it's a transfer on death that goes to your spouse. IRA can do that. You can have a spousal IRA, and it goes directly to the spouse. Real estate held by transfer on death deed. I think they call it a quit claim. You can do, you say, okay, upon my death, it goes right to my daughter. Payable on death bank accounts or property you own with someone else in joint tenancy, and that's a husband and wife owning like the house, or tenancy by the entirety. You own something with a number of different people. You die, they're still the owners. Okay.
Yeah, that it usually says that when you buy a house, right? That
Yes, it
you're
does say
joint-
joint tenancy.
joint-
These assets will pass to the surviving co-owner or to the beneficiary you named, whether you or not you have a will. Property not subject to intestacy. This is what we were just talking about. The interest the spouse and children have in the estate owner's real estate, sometimes personal property. It passes by a specific statutory provision. Statutory meaning that the state rules. Survivorship rights and joint property owned in joint tenancy and tenancy by the entirety. We just covered that. And property held in trust. It doesn't pass at time of death of the grantor. It passes by the trust. Property passing by contract. Certain savings bonds, stocks, options that do not terminate at death. Certain employee death benefits, custodian accounts, life insurance policies owned on the lives of others. Okay, you may have, when you die, you may own the policy on your kids. Okay, so who is the successor owner? If you didn't name one, the estate's going to be the successor owner, and then most likely the spouse will be named the successor owner. Which state laws apply? Okay, if personal property, the succession to personal property is governed by the laws of the state where the decedent lived at death. Okay, they call it domicile at death. And real property depends on the intestacy statutes of the jurisdiction where the real estate is located. So I live in Illinois. I have a house that I own in Florida. I don't, but I wish I did. So I own a house in Florida. When I die, Illinois covers the house in Illinois. Florida covers the house that I own in Florida. So the real estate, the real property intestacy laws in Florida will handle what happens to that house. And it could be different from what's in Illinois. Will a state get your property? Well, if you don't have a will and you don't have any family, the property will escheat, I love that word, into the state's coffers. It hardly ever happens because if you don't have a wife, you don't have parents, you have brothers, they look to see if you got cousins or if you have a second cousin or anybody can. And you see that in the movies every once in a while. The fourth cousin twice removed comes and says, well, I'm now I get everything in the estate.
What's the state coffers? What's that?
State coffers. Coffers is just like a bank account. Okay.
But
Where
still,
they keep their money.
but they will be actually looking for, if you don't have no family member, they will be looking for.
Yes, absolutely. Now, spouses share in Illinois, and I know a lot of you don't live in Illinois, but most of you don't. But I just want to show you the difference. If you're married and you die without a will, What your spouse gets depends on whether or not you have kids, grandkids, or grandchildren. If you don't, then your spouse gets everything. If you do, they and your spouse will share your intestate property 50-50. Okay, so for instance, I own the house with my wife, joint tenancy. I die, she gets it. But that car that I bought, she's got to split that with the kids. That's such a good deal if it's not mentioned in my will.
Oh, brother.
Okay, so state of Illinois intestacy, children but no spouse, children inherit everything. And there's a sheet like this for every state. If you go into intestacy in the state on the internet, that you can find these things. Spouse but no descendants, spouse inherits everything. Spouse and descendants, half and half of intestate property. Parents but no spouse, parents get everything. Siblings but no spouse, descendants or parents, siblings get everything. Look at this one, parents and siblings. Parents and siblings inherit your estate property in equal shares, except that if only one parent is living, the parent gets a double share. So they get the spouse's share also, even though that spouse is not alive. Okay, all right. Now we have community property states. There's 9 of them. Some of you live in these states: Arizona, California, Idaho, Louisiana, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, Washington, and Wisconsin. Alaska is kind of unique in that it's an opt-in. So they can do community or they can do not community. So I looked at the Texas communities, the spouse and children who are already children of your spouse. So they get a little more specific. Spouse inherits all of your community property plus 1/3 of your personal property and the right to use your real estate for life. Children get everything else. Imagine an executor having to go through and figure that all out. Down, spouse and children who are not the children of your spouse, it's half, and then 1/3, and then 1/2. Spouse and parents, spouse gets all of your community property, all of your separate personal, and half of your separate real estate. So if I own a cabin on my own, parents get half of that. Okay, one parent and siblings but no spouse. Parent gets half, the siblings get half. Spouse and sibling but no parent. Spouse inherits all of your community property, all of your personal property, and half of your separate. Siblings get everything else. So you can see that it's different in different states. So if you move from Texas to Illinois, you're going to need to change your will. If you move from Illinois to Texas, you surely want to change your will because that's kind of crazy. Okay. The general requirement by all states is that a will must be written. It must be typewritten, written in pencil or pen, or it could be written partly in pen and partly in pencil, but it needs to be written. This is interesting. A holographic will is a will that's written and signed in the testator's own handwriting and will be upheld even though the formalities required for witnessing of wills are not complied with. Okay, so let's look at the next slide. Witness. For a will to be properly executed and valid, it must be witnessed in accordance with the statutory requirements. Okay, the statutory requirement might say that the holographic will doesn't have to be signed by a witness. Well, Yola and I, we witnessed a will in the office here. It had to have 3 witnesses, and it had to be notarized. So that's what they like in the state of Illinois. And some states require that the will be signed in the presence of witnesses. Others permit acknowledgement of the testator's signature. We witnessed the actual signature when the person came in to have the will. So that some states require it, some don't. So you can see how different the states are in treating property, both real and personal, when someone dies intestate. The way to take control and keep control of where your property is going upon your death is to have a will and keep it up to date. So You need to review it every once in a while, make sure it still does what you want it to. So, got a couple questions. If an individual dies without a will, all of the individual's property is distributed in accordance with state rules that may or may not reflect the owner's intention. True or false? Well, that's true. If the individual dies intestate, the state decides the property disposition according to a legal formula. And I showed you what Illinois was. Whether the state's formula for property distribution matches what the person wanted is immaterial. That can be a legal word, immaterial. Okay, which of the following common reasons people have for putting off creating a will is most easily resolved by explaining the consequences of dying intestate? This is kind of a no-brainer question. The general belief that there's plenty of time before one will die. That's why they put off buying life insurance, right? Unfamiliarity or misunderstanding of the laws of intestacy. Procrastination, that happens. Reluctance to face the realities of death, that also happens. Unfamiliarity or misunderstanding of the laws of intestacy. And hopefully we've been able to clear some of that up for you this morning. Which of the following statements regarding intestacy is false? Every state has its own intestacy laws. I'd say that's true. Intestacy laws distributed property according to a statutory formula. Yeah. Intestacy rule sets a standard upon which all wills must be modeled. I'm not so sure about that one. Intestacy rules are applied only if a valid will is not in effect at the time of an individual's death. Okay, so C, yes. Intestacy rules set a standard upon which all wills must be modeled. No, it's not. Intestacy rules differ from state to state. So the answer to that is C. Surviving spouse who is granted ownership of the property under the will of the deceased spouse will. I need to be able to read what that says. Sorry. Okay, surviving spouse who is granted ownership of property under the terms of the deceased spouse will cannot contest the terms of the will, even if the amount of property is less than she would have been granted under the state's intestacy law. That's false. We really didn't talk about that, but if a spouse is left out of a will, the spouse can contest that. And there's reasons for it, but if the person is married, even an ex-spouse can contest it. So what if your clients have a will but are unsure of how it works when they die? They've heard the word probate. Okay, we've all heard the word probate, but they really don't know what it means or how it works. So we're going to talk about that just for a few minutes. What is probate? The state probate process is the process by which the will is brought before a court to prove that it is valid. That's the word probate. Probate means you're proving it. So there are three primary objectives of probate. One is to preserve the estate. Two is to protect the rights of creditors to the payment of their claims before the estate is distributed to the heirs. If I owe Sears or Macy's or whoever it might be, they have a right to get their money. To assure that heirs receive their inheritance in accordance to the terms of the estate owner's will. Okay, after the executor or administrator has been approved by the probate court and posts any bond that is required, the probate process begins. So,
Up.
Moved all at once, sorry.
Hold on, we have to go back to the prior slide.
Yeah. Moving along. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's see if I can do it this way. So, personal representative must prove up the will. In other words, prove that the will is valid, signed by the estate owner who is competent and not under duress at the time. Again, that's kind of a lot to ask of an executor, but that's what has to happen. Notice must be given by the personal representative to all creditors to make prompt claims for any money owed by the estate. The personal representative must prepare and file an inventory and appraisal of estate assets. And usually what they do is hire somebody to come in and do that. And that's another cost. Personal representative must manage and liquidate estate assets as appropriate to pay all debts, fees, and taxes. Again, another big job. Finally, the remaining estate must be distributed to the heirs in accordance with the estate owner's will or the state laws of intestacy if there is no will. It's not really uncommon for the probate process to require a year or more and considerable expense before the estate is finally settled. And again, that is an advantage of the life insurance or annuity product that has a named beneficiary. It doesn't have to get probated. That's a big advantage to a life insurance contract. That money, I mean, when a person dies, you need the heirs need money to pay things, like if they owe money to Macy's or whoever. They need cash. They got to pay the funeral expenses. So it's a good thing to have the life insurance in place so they can get money within a couple of weeks. How to avoid or minimize probate, the state statutes, and having a will, joint tenancy, having transfers at death, lifetime giving, give money away before death, use the trusts, and the beneficiaries in life insurance. And that, again, that's a really good way to avoid probate. The way to take control and maintain control of where your assets are going to go upon your death is to have a will drawn up and keep it up to date. So, are there any questions? Questions or comments?
Yes, good morning, Paniola, Tom, Joe Walaszek from Rockford.
Hello, Joe.
I got a couple questions. Can you go back to your early slide on annuity? I just want to make sure I understand. And I own annuity with PNA. Let me get my glasses. What are we saying here? Okay, let's say this PNA SPDA is at 5 or 3?
Yes,
5, yeah.
Okay, so first year 225, second, third, fourth year 2%, or up to the fifth year, and the guarantee rate. Are we saying that these are all like a floating every time the feds change the rate, PNA changes?
No. First of all, the 2.25 is guaranteed in the first year, and the second, third, fourth, and fifth years are guaranteed at 2%. So the guarantee rate really kicks in after the fifth year, that 1%. So, but after the guarantee period, and you'll see the PNA Flex 8 has a 1-year guarantee.
Right.
Okay. So after that 1 year, it goes to whatever the current rate is at that time, and it can't be lower than 1, but it could be 2, it could be 2.5, it could be 3, depending on what the current market is.
So it is a floater. I mean that it's except for the first year that you guarantee it.
Yeah, and they can change it at any time. Usually, the changes are made on a quarterly basis. And quite frequently they leave this rate's been what it is for a long time. So it's more stable than the market, but it does follow interest rates and what the Fed is doing with interest rates. And remember that in a life insurance company, we have to invest long-term, right? So
Right.
we don't move around as quickly as maybe the banks are fairly long-term also, but and that's why they're so low right now. But if you've got a mutual fund or something like that, it's gonna move up and down pretty rapidly on a daily basis. But the annuity, again, we are long-term investing, and so we lag the market, and that's an important thing to understand because when you're going to see rates start to go up, and it's happening as we speak. You're going to see rates start to go up, but our rate's going to stay probably pretty level for a while, and then it'll catch up. Now, the good thing about that is when the market rates start to go back down, our rates stay up for a while. And you probably experienced it. I wasn't here, I've been here a year now, but I wasn't here previous to that. But that's my experience with annuities is that they'll stay level for a while and then they'll start to drop. And they follow the market, but they follow it after a while. It's not right away.
So that's the SPDA 5 is the only one that really guarantees
5 years.
5 years. Rest of them are adjusted yearly.
Yeah, but the first year is guaranteed.
Right. Okay. All
And
right.
they can be adjusted daily, but we don't do that. Like I said, it's usually quarterly or longer.
Okay. Now, can we shift gears and go to something else?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. I received I'm sure all the financial secretaries received a letter about the scholarships now that being accepted for the next year.
Yes.
How can PNA home office help us out in the field to reach to these students members? I mean, we have in our lodge, we have about somewhere around 250 adults. I don't have any telephone numbers from 90% of them. I never met them. I don't know who they are. They've been signed up by previous financial secretaries. What can a home office do to get a word out to these people who are eligible for the scholarships to apply? I mean, this is a big selling point we use when we sign up the kids and the young people that, PNA offers scholarships. Any ideas? I mean, you know what I'm getting at?
Yes. See, with me, I think the Zgoda is the one that we're all getting it. And I guess if I wouldn't be working for PNA and my son would be going to college, I will be kind of, when I'll be reading it, it will kind of prompt me to look on the website. We also have, we also posted on our Facebook. We're also posted on our Facebook. I know that Agnes is preparing an email to our big giant list of people that provided their emails. I know that. I really don't know how to do this to the lodges.
You see, now you mentioned Zgoda.
Mm-hmm.
The problem I have with Zgoda, it's a beautiful magazine. I mean, it's really well done. I enjoy it. I know a lot of my friends, we talk about it at the meetings. It's great. I get extra, Zgodas every quarter, and I put it in the church, and they go fast. But the problem is, it's like, okay, April 15th is the deadline for the scholarship. Zgoda will not come out probably 2 weeks before that. So that doesn't help. I mean, look at what happens to the Christmas special for the kids that we had. Zgoda came out, 2 weeks before the end of December. It's useless. I mean, I don't know. I'm just looking for some ideas. How do I
But we-
get to?
What we could do, we could get you your lodge, specific ages for your lodge that we will get, let's say 18 to what, 21, 22.
Well, it's gotta be more than, I think it's gotta be at least, this is the second year in college, right? So it's
Yes,
19.
it is.
So,
But
yeah,
see, you have to remember, Joe, that a person that is in the first year of college, if they're like they started college in September, and
right,
it's January right now, okay, and they could already apply because it will be for the following year.
right, that's true.
They could already apply. That means they could already send that application by April 15th. And that's always I tell my clients.
Another question.
Mhm.
Is there a way to keep us, and I don't know how to put it another way. I was surprised I received the new summary of all the members in the lodge, at the end of the year or beginning of the year.
Mhm.
And, we've lost, I don't know, 6, 7 people. There's no way for me to know that there's some that basically cashed out the policy, some died. Is there a way when something like this happens that there could be a switch in the program to notify us in the field, hey, you just lost a member, or some because of death or because they decide to cash in?
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, I think it would be helpful to have this information.
See, I should be answering that because I wasn't here. I heard that kind of program was implemented before. And what I was gathering from, and I could speak with Mr. Spula or Alicia because they will have the knowledge of it, and they will have the telling the employees that they have to implement that, that it wasn't successful. But I could definitely talk to them. And see if we could inform the agents that I know. If I see, because Bart is the one, when we receive cash surrender, or usually more Bart is the one when we receive cash surrender, and there is a report that the person requested a cash surrender. Okay, we look at the profile of that policy, and then if there is an agent, I call that agent and tell him, listen, that person requests cash surrender with this policy. Would you like to speak with them? I know that I followed that rule, and I know Bartek is pretty good with that. But only if there is an agent. Let's say if there's no agent, we handle it. That means we call the client, we explain the advantages and disadvantages the most of cash surrendering this policy, especially during the pandemic. With the death claims, I could talk to Mr. Spula. I could ask them if he wants the employees to send those information to you, because we do get them. But I will have to ask for permission to do so.
All right, and my final one, my favorite one, we've talked about it the last couple of times.
Mhm.
On the dividend reports, to have the current financial secretaries listed and not the one that sold them the policy. Anything new on that one, Tom?
I don't have anything new, but I have made some inquiries about it, and I have to do more work on it. So, but I've started the ball rolling on that. So,
All right.
and the thing about it is, what I was told was that the agent that writes the policy is the one who wrote the policy. I said, well, yeah, that's true. And that needs to be in the record, but we could also add a servicing agent. But that's part of understanding how the system works. So,
But you understand what I
oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, the agent who wrote 50% or maybe even 90% of our policies in our lodge are long gone.
Well, and they can't really call them, can they?
That's right.
So
No,
I get that.
okay, all right. I'm not gonna bring it up again. I mean, I'm
It's
just
on my list.
okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Any other questions?
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks. We love it when you see. We love questions. We love questions. That's what it's all about.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being with us today, and stay safe, stay indoors. Elizabeth, don't go anywhere.
I would just like to say hey to Irene Herchik there. I see. It's been a long time, Irene.
Yeah, hi, Joe. Good to see you.
Likewise.
Yeah, good
I love
questions
Zoom.
too. I just had a quick question for Tom and Yola. On that buck slip for annuity brochure, is there on the reverse side, is it in Polish or any more information on that? Could we see that just one last time?
Actually, what we did was we did two different markets. We did a younger market and an older market. So
Oh,
It's all
it's not in
English.
Polish, but it's
okay. I have to, I don't know, is that available? Sunday, we have a meeting at PNA, so I would like to have maybe some of. both
no, it
available.
won't be that quick. So
Okay.
I could have some printouts on our copy machine.
okay, we can do something on the copy.
Yeah,
machine.
because people will be there, so it'd be good to have if it's, if it's in final format, I'm not sure.
Not the final. Well, it's final format, but it's not printed. So.
Okay,
But yeah, we could have that. We could get that printed on the copy machine, and we could have it.
and if we could have some zgodas there, that would be good, like people to grab and take, because I know I'd like to have some too.
Yes. When you actually, Irene, I don't know if you were in the office because of the COVID. We have a table right by the elevator that has Zgoda
Okay.
and all giveaway and
Okay.
brochures that we have available.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of good points. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being
Oh,
with us.
one more, I'm sorry, I always think of this before we sign off. If we go to the recording, are those slides available for us? If we wanted to print them out or have them?
No, not on the recording, but if you want them, just email me and I'll send them to you.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Yes, the PowerPoint.
Okay? Godspeed. Have a good day.
Thank
Stay
you. Thank
healthy.
you, everybody.
See you next time.
Stay safe.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.